Yeah, like, so, that was just one of the hardest things was the Trinity. So, like, and the fact that Jesus was a Jew, it just was like, to me, growing up the way I grew up, it was like, I didn't know this, that's not something they teach you in the church. It's not something they teach you in Christianity at all, like, and then it was like more confusing stuff. So we get deeper into like confusion. The confusion really like settled in when, why is the, like, it's like, to me, it was like, why is the Old Testament and the New Testament both in the same book if the Old Testament is technically speaking no longer relevant to us? Yeah, sure, our pastor, which grandma or our aunts or, our pastors, whoever, most of my pastors was family members. They own churches, they ranking members in the church, whatever. But, so it was like, they quote from, the Old Testament. But to me, it's like, how can you make a point from the Old Testament if you basically saying we don't have to follow the rules of the Old Testament anymore? So that's like, I'll give you an example. That's like me as a Muslim, quoting from John 3:16. First of God loved the world, he gave his only blah 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 blah. That's like me doing that in a masjid. Why, if I don't believe that? Like, why, if that's not what I actually follow? So, and I actually did ask one of my aunts that one time, and she was just basically like, well, this is still, the New Testament came to fulfill the Old Testament, so this is still blah blah blah, this and the third. So then I start, getting into detail. At this point, I done, read the Quran. At this point, I think I done read it twice. But then I started getting into like details, like, cause I had started reading the Bible. I was also, if I'm doing like religious kind of studying and stuff, now I get into like Leviticus 11, where it tells basically everything you shouldn't eat. So that's where I found out that Jews don't eat pork. Jews don't eat nothing out of the sea that don't have fins and scales, and they don't eat this and that and the third. Like, Leviticus 11 is long, and it shows a lot of stuff that you don't eat in there. But I know pork was one of those things, so I'm saying, well, dang, the Bible shows that you're not supposed to eat pork. And then she pulls up another verse in the New Testament that says, basically, eat whatever you want, just don't be a glutton, don't eat too much of it, or whatever, whatever the case may be. So then it's like, now you want me to believe that God changed his mind, all in one book. God changed his mind. Like, so now I'm like, if God is all knowing, all powerful, what would be the point of him changing his mind? Like, I wouldn't understand. Humans, I'll change my mind quick. I might say I want to make eggs today, and I don't even make eggs. I might make grits. I change my mind because I'm a human, But if I know everything and everything is predestined, like everything is written, then I could have just started off with don't eat pork, which is what he started off with. So that's how, Muslims, we abide by that too. We don't eat pork. So it was just things like that, little stuff. So most of my doubts from Christianity didn't come from like Islam. It didn't come from because I was finding Islam. It came from Christianity itself. I didn't believe that the main, like I said, the main thing was for me was, why would God kill his son? Because at that time I was thinking to myself, like, my dad better not do nothing to me for, something that somebody else did to him. Like, it don't make no sense. So, that's basically where them ideas came in. So I started actually, now at this point now, I'm actually studying Islam, reading Islam, reaching conclusions. I see in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, they thought they crucified him, but they crucified him not. Instead, I raised him up unto me. So Allah raised him up to heaven. Jesus was never crucified. They say 3 days, that he died, he rose in 3 days, but they can never explain to me why it's technically only 1.5, 2 days. you know. So they say he rose on the third day. Well, it was never a day and a night, and then a day and a night. It was like a half day, a half night. It was like a night, then a full day, and then a morning. So that's 2 days, you know. So it was like things like just little stuff just bother me. And me, I'm not gonna say I'm a perfectionist, but when it comes to God, I believe in perfection, you know. So then my next studies was contradictions, and I did it in everything. Contradictions in the Old Testament, contradictions in the New Testament, contradictions in the Quran. And of course, you get on Google, anything can sound like a contradiction until you dissect, you know. So I didn't actually just say, oh, well, you know what, this does contradict. I dissect, I read. I don't just read the verse itself. I read the verses before. I want to see what the whole conversation about, what the whole passage was about, like, you know. So get into that, find hundreds of contradictions. Some of them I didn't even believe in. Some of them I did still at the time. So it was like, I get into that real crazy. Get into the Quran, and there's no real like contradictions or something. You know, so they like, it had like simple stuff that might look like a contradiction until you put it in context, like how Allah says that he made man from clay, and then Allah says that he was made from a drop of blah blah blah, and this and the third. Both are correct. It's not a contradiction, because he made Adam alayhi salatu wasalam from clay, and then Eve from his, you know, from something that not necessarily is bread, but, you know, is liquids or something, or not. I'm not a scholar, so don't, you know, if I'm wrong, you drop it in the comment. But basically, Eve from some form of liquid, and we that are born today are made from the drop of, you know, sperm hitting the egg and all of that. So it was like, that's not a contradiction. That's basically one passage is telling you how he made Adam, alayhi salatu wasalam, and then the next one is telling you how we are made, you know. So stuff like that. So then I started getting real crazy, and so by the time I was 17, it was Ramadan. I want to say like the first or second week of Ramadan, maybe. I had went to the masjid for my first time, offered salah for my first time, Allahu Akbar, and I took my shahada, you know, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. I took my shahada, and I became, you know, a Muslim that day. Now, this is where my studying and trials and tribulations really began. Like I said, I didn't go straight from Christianity to Muslim, but I became a Muslim, and I believed in all of that. But now I'm studying, because I know a time is about to come where eventually one of my friends, family members, somebody gonna be telling me I'm wrong, or that I made the wrong decision, or that, you know, but it's gonna be some kind of debate, altercation type of thing eventually, you know. So my parents accepted it. I was perfectly fine, you know what I mean? Just my parents, but I just know, you know, how it be, like, especially with like family members or friends and stuff, you know. So got into that.